Hello, and welcome to my dining room. This is episode 16 of the Live and Learn Knitting Podcast. Today is Friday, April 12th, 2024. My name is Anne, or Annie, and I live on the banks of the Mississippi River in western Wisconsin. And I hope today's episode is a bit shorter. I don't have a lot on my list to talk about. It's spring, there's so much happening and going on, and so, short and sweet. And that's really how I wanted these episodes to be anyway. But let's jump in. This episode is entitled One Last Winter Sweater, because it is warming up. Tomorrow the weather is going to be in the 70s, and it might not stay that way, but it is getting, the days of wearing bulky winter sweaters are numbered. And I did want to share this one with you before winter was gone and we moved on to spring and summer knitting, because I don't have a lot of spring and summer knitting. I really like the winter sweaters better. So I'll just start out by also saying that there is tea today in another one of my Sharon Shakar mugs. And this is a little mug. Probably for most people, like an espresso mug or something. I don't even know if it holds 8 ounces. I didn't measure. Maybe 6. But when I was a child, and there were coffee cups in our house, and they were Fire King, those heavy, a glass bottom. They were small. They were about this size. And, all of our dishes and that have expanded over the years, and this is a nice size. The tea today, there's tea, mango ginger yogi tea, which is, it says, supports healthy digestion. I'm just feeling a little blah. Not, my stomach is feeling a little blah today. I was doing really well, eating all the things that were good for me in the right portions. And then yesterday, afternoon, evening, I kind of had a downward spiral. So I don't feel terrible, but I thought, I'll just get back on track today with some mango ginger. And the affirmation, where did it go? Here it is. The affirmation on the tea bag was, appreciate yourself and honor your soul. And that's, yes, we should all do that, because we're worth it. Honor yourself. Appreciate yourself. Definitely. All good things. So, I'll have a sip of tea and we'll jump right into what I'm wearing. I'll share this sweater with you. This is the Metropolis sweater by Tanis Lavallee. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right. Lavallee. Tanis Fiber Arts on Ravelry. And it's a free pattern on Ravelry. And I will show you, I'll show you her version first. This is okay. Of course that should happen. George was sitting on the iPad earlier and he messed things up a bit. I'm not helping. So that's, and I'm sorry there's a bit of glare on there from all the glassiness in the world, but that's Tanis's version. So you can see a nice deep shawl turtleneck collar, deep ribbing on the sleeves and on the body, and it's a top-down raglan construction for a bulky weight yarn. So here's my version. Doesn't look a lot like Tanis's at all, but I'll stand up. So, okay, I started with a garter stitch collar, shallow, and the neck on this is fine. It's not too wide, it's not too deep, it's not too close, it's not too wide. I basically used Tanis's numbers to, figure out what size I wanted to knit and just to get some numbers to start with for a top-down raglan. So I did that, and I might have even done like an extra stitch in here because her raglan seam looks a little closer. It's hard to tell with the rag yarn, you know, to get real close up to that. But I might have put an extra stitch just to make this raglan shaping a bit broader. They call that, you know, maybe more full-fashioned, away from the seam line. So that, and then at the bottom, rather than a big deep rib hem, because, you know, I said I don't need to go in, I did a garter stitch, and I did a little bit of a split right there. So I had some garter stitch here, and then I split for the front and the back. And there's a reason why I did that, not just for fit and comfort, which it definitely is fit and comfort, but also it was yarn management. Because to make this sweater, this was part of the Yarnology, the local knitting store over in Winona, Minnesota. They usually have a, do they call it January? January sweater challenge, winter sweater challenge, where you start cast on January 1st and finish on Valentine's. And they extended that in 2021 to, they extended the deadline maybe to the end of February, end of March. I have that in my notes. But they do that every year, or they have been. So I wanted to play along with that sweater challenge. And I wanted to also knit from stash. So the yarn that I chose, isn't this a lovely raspberry shade? I'm just, this color, this feel of this, everything about this sweater just makes me happy. And I love wearing it. And I can wear it next to my skin, which is super. So this was actually a combination of 3 yarns. And the first yarn, and I'll show you to get a bulky. The first yarn was a worsted weight yarn, and this is all I have left of it. It's Maratona. It's Baruffa Maratona, which is an Italian yarn. That's a worsted weight. There's a little cat here hanging on there. Jeepers. But I want to show you, and I can't get too close without it. There you can kind of see really good. You see it's a plied yarn. I took the end apart. It's actually 6 plies. That's why it's very round. And this is 100% merino. Came in 50-gram balls. It's a yarn, again, from the 80s or 90s. And this was gifted to me, this shade. I have other shades upstairs that I had purchased. But I split apart the ends because there are 6 plies, which make a very rounded yarn, which is perfect for cables and any kind of texture work. Now, I didn't use it for that, but another project upstairs is a cable project, and yeah, it looks amazing. Each one of these 6 plies is actually a 2-ply yarn. So, you know, it's round, round, round. It just, yeah, it almost looks, when, you know, when you're looking at it, it almost looks braided. It's hard to see in this light. And I actually put up a big tea towel to block the bright sunlight this morning because it's very bright again. It's lovely. But it was really washing everything out. But yeah, it's hard to see that, but it can have sort of almost a braided look to it. But it's very soft and springy bouncy because of all of that twist and those plies. Yeah, it just boing, boing, boing. So it makes an amazing knitted fabric. And if you can find yarns similar, you know, this is, again, something that's discontinued. But yeah, definitely well worth knitting with. So there was 1 ply of that. There was, and this isn't the shade, but again, you know, I've shown in the past episodes this lovely Italian mohair wool blend that I got at the Knitting Mill sales. So I had that in this, also this raspberry shade. So that added some heft and halo. And I'm trying to think if I used, I don't think I said it in here, how many strands of, I think two strands of this yarn. And then the third yarn that adds the accent, the interest, the color shiftiness is this, which is a cotton acrylic blend. And now let me see if I can show you a few strands of this. And obviously you can see that it is something that's ripped apart. Oh, that's not showing up very well. So this is 3 strands, and each strand is a different color. There's a red, a purple, and pink, and that together sort of makes this raspberry marl. This was a thrift store sweater for, 99 cents. And yeah, it's a cotton acrylic blend. It just felt wonderfully soft, and I can show you what it looked like as a full sweater because I have another one in a different shade. This blue. So picture this in this, and that's what it looked like. And it's funny because now I'm almost a little hesitant that I took this apart. When I purchased these, I was probably a lot heavier. And I actually thought that these were, because it says on here, the tag says extra large, 60% cotton, 40% acrylic. And I thought, extra large, this is a kid's sweater, extra large. Well, these ribs, they do stretch. So I tried this sweater on this. I'm sure when I bought these, I couldn't fit into anything like this, and didn't even try. But now that I've lost a whole bunch of weight, I did try this on this morning, and I could wear it. I mean, it did fit. It was a bit snug in the neck and a bit snug like up under the armpit. So I think I'll hang on to this one and not tear it apart because I am still in the process of shrinking some more. And, maybe, now I've got lint in my eye, maybe that will fit better one day. But thrift store sweaters, taking them apart, and that'll be the next thing I talk about. So, yeah. But back to this. So, top-down construction, my yarn management was based on this. And like I said, this is all I have left because I only had 7 50-gram balls, 350 grams of this worsted weight yarn. Not a lot. Certainly not a lot for a sweater in my size had I been knitting it alone, unless I had maybe knitted on, say, size 10 US needles and made it very loose. And that's not me. That's not the kind of sweater I want. I don't like open drapey fabric. I mean, I like drapey fabric, but not open, loosey, holy, sloppy looking. To me, it can look sloppy. So I didn't want to do that. And I thought, well, 700 or 7 balls, I could make a vest out of it. I don't know. It was just, I thought, well, I'll try combining these 3. And again, this isn't the right color. Try combining these and just see what I come up with. And I did a swatch. I should have brought the swatch. I don't know why I didn't. Looks like this. I did a swatch, and yeah, I thought that will work, definitely. So cast on, and that was one reason why I did such a shallow neck. I would have loved to do a neck like Tanis did, the big, deep turtle neck. Someday I will do something like that. But I knew I had to be careful with yarn management because I needed enough, for my body, and I wanted length. And this does, it's hard to show in the camera, but it does come down almost exactly, pretty exactly, really, to where I wanted it to land. Not much longer, and it's not cropped. So, yeah, so I was really watching the yarn management the whole time and worked most of the body, a good portion of the body. And I was counting my balls. 7 balls. Okay, 1 for each sleeve. That left 5 for the body, more or less. Well, I needed more than 1, I think, for each sleeve, maybe 1.5. So after I had worked, and of course, when you're doing the top down, you've got most of it done, the bulk of it done in the chest and upper body. So when I had used up 3 balls or 4 balls, I stopped and I worked a sleeve, and I worked another sleeve, and I think I even left the sleeve stitches on, didn't do the cuffs, just did just down towards the wrist edge, and then worked the body to see, how far I was getting, if I was getting the length that I wanted. And it was getting close, so I finished off the sleeves, and then I did this. I actually did the bottom part, and then I had to rip back a bit to put in that little garter stitch before the split, because I wasn't sure where, how much yarn. I'm not explaining this very well, I'm sorry. I did the whole edges, and I maybe hadn't put the split in. And then I ripped all of that back, put the split in, and split. So I knew that I wouldn't run out of yarn, but I was working the back and front simultaneously. This is what happened. I worked the back and the front flaps simultaneously, and actually the back flap has 2 more rows in it than the front flap does. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. It's even, better. Have a little bit, and it's not much more length. It's 2, it's 1 row, 1 ridge of garter stitch. But, yeah, for some reason, my calculation, when I ripped back and did that, it ate up a little more yarn. So just this much left. So I was really happy that I used up yarn from stash, that I took advantage of a thrift store find. Again, I used up some of this stuff, which I just love. I love being able to add this to things. And it all worked out, and it feels lovely next to the skin. It's very soft. Sometimes this can be a bit scratchy, but it's not scratchy enough to bother me. I think a sweater just in this would be amazing next to skin. And of course, this feels very soft. This feels cushiony, like I don't want to say like a sweatshirt, because that sounds, but like a sweatshirt. Like a good old-fashioned sweatshirt. Cozy. So yeah, so this is my sweater, Metropolis, and I called it, hers was Metropolis. I called my project version the small town sweater, because definitely not metropolitan at all. So that was that project, and yeah, I enjoyed it. I've done it several times with Yarnology, with that knit along. I didn't do it this year, but maybe next year. Just depends on where I'm at in my projects, So I was too overwhelmed this year with all kinds of projects, so I didn't join in. But it's always a good challenge. So that is what I'm wearing today, and then I want to talk a little bit about thrift store finds and reusing yarn from store-bought sweaters, commercially made sweaters, because that is part of, there's a lot of, well, now they're calling it upcycling, recycling, make, do, and mend. It's a lot of what I like to do, what I think we should be doing to just make use of the resources that we already have, that are already out there, and stop being so wasteful of, you know, these aren't really raw materials, but we can turn them back into raw materials and make good use of them. So there was one winter, and this is many years ago. I had just happened to stop at, I believe it was Goodwill, at a point in the winter where they had, you know, late winter, where they had put all of their winter sweaters on a clearance rack for, yeah, 99 cents a piece. And I bought a lot. And they're sitting in boxes downstairs. I've taken several apart and used them for different things. But, and again, yeah, now some of them are, you know, maybe going to be wearable even. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about what to look for in a thrift store sweater, to know that it's going to be one that you can take apart. And there are already now many videos on this, many YouTubes, just on this topic. I haven't looked at any of them because I already knew how to do it. But if you don't know, I mean, this will be a little glimpse. And I think there have been magazine articles written as well. So, you want to make sure that you find a sweater that is not serged, because serging cuts the fabric. And, you know, if you try to take apart a sweater that has serged side seams, or if it's just maybe a serged in neckband, that's not terrible, but watch those side seams. And if they are serged, and what serging, I'm sure a lot of you know what serging looks like. And I hope this will show up. Let's see. Here's a good section of it. Serging looks like this. So you'll see oftentimes a different fabric, and so all of this is cut at the top. And now this sweater is very interesting, odd duck sweater. The tag says Danielle Karen. I have no idea, but it's 100% Shetland wool, which is why I purchased it, because I thought, okay, even if it's serged and it's something like that, 100% wool, and even better, Shetland wool, you can felt it. You can cut it up in pieces like it's fabric and felt it, and I've seen mittens made out of it. I've seen hats made out of it, and you just, you know, treat it like fabric and sew it. And that's great. Tea cozies have been made that way. Anything, cushions, other garments. This one is a Shetland. It's got a few moth holes in it, but, you know, oops, very pretty. Very pretty. Wide rib. It's been in the box, so it's wrinkly. Wide rib Shetland pullover. And how weird that they sewed in, everything on it is good. It has the linked seams and everything, you know, at the shoulders and the sides. But for some reason, in their design process, they decided to serge in this extra polo collar. I tried this sweater on this morning because it is an extra large, and it does fit me. But that collar, it doesn't lay nicely at all. You know, it's probably supposed to lay like that. Well, it didn't want to. It wanted to just stand up. I couldn't get it to flop down like that. And you can even see it in the back. It's trying not to lay flat. So what I'm going to do is, you know, how they serge that in there. With this one, I'm just going to cut this collar off on the collar side of the serging and leave that serged edge in place, because that gets hidden by this crew neck collar. And then I think I'll wear this. And I just did notice that there are a few moth holes in the back of it. So it'll be a garden sweater, you know, a yard work sweater, more than it's an around the house sweater, more than a fancy go out sweater. but very pretty, very pretty. So useful, you know, useful. And so that's what serging looks like. And you want to stay away from that, because if you take apart that try to take apart that serge sweater for yarn use, you're just going to end up with short pieces of yarn. Each row, you know, will be one piece of yarn. And it won't be fun to take apart. You won't be able to take apart that serge seam. You have to cut those. So yeah, you're cutting to make short pieces. If for some reason short pieces of yarn are what you desire, more power to you. Yes, you could use that. Maybe pom-poms, maybe tassels, maybe fringe. There could be a use for that, but if you want long lengths of yarn for knitting, what you want to look for is what's called a linked seam. And this is a sweater, and this is inside out right now. There's embroidery. You can see the embroidery from the inside out. This is a sweater I used to wear. It's a Liz Claiborne sweater, cotton, 100% cotton. So, but it's got a good example of what a linked seam should look like. If you can see right up there, that's that horizontal line, and oh, I think you can see it pretty good. It's a line of chain stitch, and that is made with a machine called a linker, which all it does is make a chain stitch, and it seams the two pieces of fabric together. And this is really interesting because on this side, that is the top. I've got an edge there. This is the top shoulder seam of this piece of fabric. And then look at what they did. This is the front, and they linked it. They didn't link edge to edge. They have this little, you know, extra, so a lot extra salvage of the top front shoulder. It's like, if we were knitting, we sure wouldn't do that. We would, you know, sew edge to edge. When we seamed our shoulders, we would do a 3-needle bind off or something. But this is just, so if you ask me, this is a bit of a sloppy construction. And with linking, you know, so they were linking the shoulder seam, they linked the collar, and you often end up with this kind of a knobby mess, you know, where all the linked stuff is happening here. They're probably folded over the edge of this front shoulder neck opening. And, you know, and I remember wearing this, and this knob just, you know, poking into my neck. It was very uncomfortable. So, because this was 100% cotton, I saved it to take apart for either weaving or spinning, weaving or knitting. I could knit washcloths with this. I've taken cotton sweaters apart and made baby sweaters out of them, because, you know, the more you take something apart, the less, you maybe won't always have enough to make another sweater. It depends on the size of the garment, you know. Big oversized sweater, yeah, you could probably make a sweater for yourself. Like this, I used, no, when I took this sweater apart, it was 500 grams of yarn, and I didn't use that much when I knit this sweater. So I still do have quite a bit left. Yeah, I probably have enough for sure to make baby sweaters. Or hats or something like that. Do something else with it. Yeah, there's all this left in of that yarn. So, but I don't know if I would have had enough to make a full adult size sweater for myself. Maybe a vest. You start doing your yarn management just as you would for any other sweater. So this, since it has some embroidery on it, I did start, and I picked apart one of these, you know, embroideries, and just pulled it all out. Just something to do, snip yarn ends, you know, something to do when you're TV watching or whatever. Pull that embroidery out. It's not difficult on a cotton sweater. It's not all felted together or anything. And then you have to start looking for where you can get a good seam edge. I usually start at shoulder seam or a neck, and I could start here and try to cut this big bobble apart. What I did was I did manage to find the chain that was linking this neck seam together, which they put on the side, and so I took that out. That was first. And then I found, now see, this is all still attached right here to this big wadge of cotton, but I want to show you, I found the link. Let me see here if I can pull the right, because once you find the end and this chain that you see linking things together, you want to start at the end where there's the loop. You know, a chain stitch goes like this. So you want to make sure you're at that top loop, and you can start. It's just like when you're opening a bag of birdseed or any kind of other feed from the feed store, and you have that we used to get them on bags of sugar. They don't do that anymore. But you know, you take that and you zip it across, and it opens right up. That's what you're looking for. So yeah, if you find the top of the chain, you can do that. Now see here on the neck edge, I've got that, and see, I can just, oh, and I'm gonna hit, this is a bad example because I'm gonna hit the tags. So I should have thought of that, and I'll stop right there. I'll go to another place where I found an edge, and that's here on this shoulder. And so see, I can take this and just do that, and there, now my shoulder seam is opened up. And so, you know, quick and easy way to take seams apart. And I just have to play with this. Again, this ball of mess is kind of hooking the front to the neckband. And you do the same thing for the sleeves. You know, you just need a good ripper, and can rip into that seam. There we go. Look at that. See, it just rips it wide open. And you can easily undo it up until you come to an intersection. This is an intersection of the underarms. So you've got the front seams coming, the seam of the sweater sleeve meeting the seam of the side seam of the body. And here's another side tag. So yeah, helpful to remove these tags first before you start ripping. And this, luckily, they sewed these dark gray tags in with dark gray sewing thread, so you can actually see where they are and rip them out really easy. Seam ripper is your friend. A pair of small pointy snip type scissors that you can get the point in. They'll be good. If you should happen to rip apart a stitch, rip into, and make a hole in the fabric, it's not the end of the world. There, see, I just ripped that tag out right now. And it's still, there's still gray thread in there, kind of knotting things up a bit, but it should come out easier when I get down to that, ripping that part of the body apart. So it's easy to take apart, and then once you do that, you can just find, let's see, if I don't think I can find it really easily on the top. Yeah, I'd have to take this ball apart before I can, because it looks like the direction of the cast off is right here. That's the end of the cast off. So to take this apart, I'd have to get to here, and then I can just unravel the sweater, unravel the knitting, and wind it into balls. Now, obviously, when I used this, I hadn't you know, it's all got its kinkiness to it. I hadn't skeined it and washed it. You can go to all that work. I wouldn't have with this yarn because it is loosely plied together, and I think by washing that kink is kind of what's holding it together. You know, if the twist on it was tighter, that'd be one thing. And sometimes the twist on these yarns, especially a cotton, it loosens up a lot when you tear it, when you rip it apart. It's not like a wool might hold that original ply twist together. But the cottons, I have noticed, they do not necessarily. They want to come apart. So I think if I had skeined this, I might have ended up with something that looked like 3 separate yarns side by side, and they might have lost their ply without this little kinkiness to hold it together, if that makes any sense. And really, knitting it up in this, it didn't affect the knitting at all. It was fine. And I could probably knit a swatch, you know, plain, just this, and wash it, and you would not see any effects of that original kinkiness. It would block out nicely. So I would say give thrift store, hard to talk today. Give thrift store sweaters a try, or a sweater, you know, a commercial sweater that you might have that you're done wearing. Take a look at it and see if it's something that can be taken apart. It's all, you know, it's a good thing to do. It's a good process. Save some yarn, especially if it's a good quality yarn. You know, in the 80s, we had a lot of sweaters that were acrylic, a lot of things like Ramie and cotton, and Ramie is, I talked about it last time, you know, a rayon from bamboo. It's not the worst thing in the world, but those, remember how heavy those cotton sweaters? This is a heavy cotton sweater, very heavy. I don't know that I would enjoy wearing that heavy cotton anymore. But surely that yarn can be reused for something. Could make market bags out of it. The possibilities are endless, endless possibilities. So that's my project for today, and that's my little lecture for today. As we're heading towards Earth Day, I don't know, let's see, today's the 12th. I guess I won't be having a podcast before Earth Day happens. So let's call this the Earth Day episode also. Yes, reduce, reuse, recycle. And reduce is really the first thing. Just, you know, every day I need to try and be happy with what I have rather than always looking for something new, something better, something different. We like to have little extra things. We'll get a little extra perk from a thrift store, and, you know, and make use of something that it wouldn't be discarded. So that's my knitting sermon for today. Woo. Didn't mean to sound a little preachy, but it's just I want to inspire everyone to do that. It's not, you know, everyone needs to do their own thing, but try it. Try it. It's fun. It's a creative process, because you don't know how it's going to turn out or what you're going to end up with. So it's all good. I'm rambling. I want to point out my amaryllis. Last bloom. The other two are already kind of faded, but one left on the leaning tower of amaryllis. Very pretty. And the other one is really being pokey, and it's still just a little nubbin sticking up from its bud, its bulb. So, and I think that one is going to be red, if I remember right. But it'll get here eventually. With that, the last thing, I think it's the last thing next to last thing that I have to talk about. It's the book I'm reading now, and I'm only that far with it, but it's a good book. I'm excited. I really like it. It is How Green Was My Valley by Richard Llewellyn from 1940. If you haven't seen my bookshelves, which I think maybe you have, I mean, I can just kind of, there's some behind me over here. There's that little bookshelf is on top of a bigger bookshelf, and then there's one next to it. There's one over there that you can't see. This is a house of books. Thousands of books. And I love them all. My private library. So I need to read the books in my private library, and this one's been sitting on my shelf for a long time. And what prompted me to pull it out was I got some books in the mail, and there was a copy of How Green Was My Valley, and I thought, I think I have that already. Yes, I do. And the movie had just been on Turner Classic Movies last month, because it had won an Oscar, and they were doing their 31 Days of Oscar movies. So I recorded it, and I didn't want to watch it until I thought, I started watching. I watched the first 5 minutes, and I thought, okay, I know I have the book. I have 2 copies of the book now. I want to read the book before I see the movie, which is, I think, always the best way to do it. Because I think I'll really enjoy the movie. So I just wanted to have that context of the book. So I pulled the book off the shelf, and I started it, and I thought, this is magic. The writing, the Richard Llewellyn. I'll just read the first few lines. I am going to pack my 2 shirts with my other socks and my best suit in the little blue cloth my mother used to tie round her hair when she did the house, and I am going from the valley. The cloth is much too good to pack things in, and I would keep it in my pocket, only there is nothing else in the house that will serve, and the lace straw basket is over at Mr. Tom Harry's over the mountain. If I went down to Tossell the shop for a cardboard box, I would have to tell him why I wanted it. Then everybody would know I was going. That is not what I want. So it is the old blue cloth, and I have promised it a good wash and iron when I have settled down, wherever that is going to be. Don't you want to know more? Don't you want to know what happens next? Why is he going? Where is he going? What happened to make him go? And it gets better. It just gets better and better. And he goes on about the old blue cloth. Yeah. So it's the story of a Welsh coal mining village and what happens there. And I don't know if it says anywhere what time period it was set in. Since it was published in 1940, was it like written about the 30s era? I think so, 20s or 30s, let's say. It's hard to tell. And if he doesn't have a specific year in the book, you wouldn't know, for sure. But yes, just really good. And the things that have happened so far in the first 9 chapters have been, I can't put it down. So I'm really enjoying it. I don't know if there's an audiobook version available. There might be, if you want to listen and knit at the same time. But I'm enjoying reading it. Yeah. And I got to tell you something. Older books like this, just the feel of the paper, the smell of them, the smell of old books. Can't beat it. Just can't beat it. Books today, I think with the paper that they're printed on, it just seems like I don't know if it's because it's a recycled paper or if it's printing process that they need to use a certain type of paper, but they're heavy. They are heavy. And, you know, a book like this printed today in the hardback would probably weigh twice as much as this one does. And I'm not sure why that is not. You know, it's hard to hold that tangible modern book in your hand. And it's hard for me because if I'm laying in bed reading and I fall asleep and it hits me in the face, it's hard to hold up. So, yeah, I'm enjoying this so much. Buy some old books when you're at the thrift store buying your sweaters. Go buy some old books, too. It's all good. So I think that's it for me for this week. This last week was jam-packed with activity. Today is kind of an off day. I say that. I have a whole bunch of household chores to do, laundry and dishes and the endless cleaning. And I've started doing yard work, which has been just a joy. Although, you know, I'm impossibly far behind already. I'm perpetually behind. That's fine. I just live with it. But I'm getting my little beds cleaned out. Oh, if you haven't seen it, take a look at the little bonus episode of, I forget what I entitled it. In my garden. It's the plants that grew here and the things in my yard, my natural world. I think that's what I called it. Photos from the last 2 years. So it's just a montage with some music. I was practicing using iMovie because I might have a little bonus episode for the knitting side of things soon. So I wanted to see how that all worked. And yeah, take a look at that. Just a little fun amount of photos that I put together of the things that why I like to be out in my yard and how pleasurable it is for me. So with that being said, I'm still blathering on for 45 minutes. It's amazing. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please like. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe. You only need to do that one time, and that subscribed you to the channel. And I will be back, I'm hoping again in 2 weeks. With summer coming, it's getting busy. Life is getting busy. I'll be outside a lot more. Maybe these episodes will be shorter for summer. We'll see. So I hope you have a great weekend, wherever you are, whatever your weather is. And enjoy Earth Day, April 22nd. There are a lot of activities the weekend before, like on the 20th. I'm sure wherever you are, you'll find something good to do for Earth Day. And yes, life is good. Keep on knitting. Be good to yourself. What did that affirmation say? I lost it already. Honor your soul. Definitely. Take care. Bye-bye.